If you're having a tough time getting your top drum group sounding good and sounding less harsh, if you're finding it sounding really, really harsh, I'm going to try a few things here today, and hopefully we can get some of those drums sounding less harsh. And I think a lot of the problem isn't necessarily with the EQing or with the balancing and all that stuff. Sometimes it's transient stacking, and I think this is the one thing that a lot of people might overlook.
Diamond chain looking like Ice Age. Yeah.
So let's dive in. Here's a loop that I got. Bunch of stuff in here. We got 3 hi-hats, we got 2 claps, and then we got like a 16th note hi-hat, and then a couple top loops at the bottom. And I would say this is pretty common. I see this all the time in tech house and techno production, to have a drum group that looks like this, couple top loop layers, 3 or 4 hi-hat layers, all this stuff, right? And now when you're layering samples, it's 2 things are really, really important. One, you want to be layering samples that really complement each other. You want to be layering, you don't want to just be layering samples for the sake of layering samples. You want to layer one sample that maybe has a lot of high end with another sample that, fills out the body. And I think it's important when you put a sound in to just think really critically before you just start layering stuff in. Think, okay, does this clap need more high end to it? Like I think it's lacking high end. And if that's the case, I'm going to go try and find a sample that just sort of fills up that high end and doesn't necessarily clash with the original, maybe mid-range of that sample, right? So that's number one. And then number 2, when you're layering samples, and what I really want to talk about today is transient stacking. So let's take a look at this group and see what we can do to make it sound a little less harsh. I'm going to just go element by element and see what we could do. So maybe let's mute these top groups and even just pay attention to our clap. Now, if we zoom in here, we have 2 clap samples that both have a pretty harsh transient right at the front. This one and this one. So simply, if what we need to do is we need to pick which transient we like more, and we can kind of just get rid of the other one. Because at this moment, right here in time, we have the kick transient, we have the clap transient, we have some other claps in this top loop, we have this hi-hat. All these transients are all happening at the exact same time. So at this instant, it's pretty much just maxed out as loud as it can be. And we don't necessarily need to do that. It's going to really hit our limiter really hard on our master. It's going to kind of clip. And so those sounds don't really need to be there. We can kind of add little fades even on all of these elements. We could do it here on this top loop too, even though we're not there quite yet. But if we add fades on all of these little elements, that clap is going to sound that much clearer and less harsh, right? The transient is going to feel a little less harsh. Let's copy this across, and let's take a listen now, just to the clap. So just to show you guys a little bit of before and after, this is before with the transients not faded, and then with them faded. So it sounds pretty similar. The overall tone of the claps and everything doesn't change too drastically, but that initial transient is just slightly less harsh. And if you do that slightly less harsh on a bunch of these elements, so if we then go turn on this top loop, and we'll go in, create fades on some of these other ones where these claps are, just little tiny fades. You're not even really going to notice it. It's really going to help with the harshness of the overall song. Let's just duplicate this across. All right, so now that clap is sounding a little less harsh. I don't need to worry about EQing it as much. It's feeling great. And so the same thing is going to go with these hi-hats. Let's slowly just turn some of these on. And we're just going to pick and choose which transients we want. I'll show you a little before and after. So over here would be the before. And now let's go into the after and just create some fades on some of these. We'll just pick and choose. Maybe this middle hi-hat will keep the transient on, and these other ones will kind of fade, and they'll just be sort of body accents. So duplicate those across. And so let's hear the This first section here is before, kind of snappy, and after. So very, very, very subtle differences, Maybe we'll accentuate that even more so you can kind of hear it a little more. But and you're really not trying to get the sound to change too much. You just want these drums to feel less harsh. Let's listen again. And then, so this is before with that real snappy transient, and after. And if you guys are listening right now on laptop speakers or whatever, like these are very, very small, minuscule things. But overall, if you just do this over and over and over again, if you're layering a bunch of drums over and over and over again, these are the little things that start to add up over time and will start to make your drum group overall feel a little harsh. So that's feeling a little better. Our closed hat, if we need to do that and we want to make it a little less harsh, what we can do, this is before, just then add some attack. That'll kind of tame some of that harshness. We can also, I talk about this in a bunch of my videos, add a compressor. And maybe if we don't want some of these transients to stack right on top of each other, I can just sidechain this to this other hi-hat here. So let's go maybe hi-hat 10, bring that down. Add a little bit of look ahead so it knows to kind of duck it before, but and now that's going to stack a little nicer too. And the same thing goes with these top loop drums, right? And some of these on this top loop, I can see, look, there's little, like, I don't know, maybe they just like high passed another drum loop or something, but we don't need some of these. We don't need this little tick thing. What I like to do is I like to pick out which elements of this top loop do I really, really, really need. Do I need this clap? Probably not. So maybe I just need some of these like little perk bits. And so maybe I'll just do that. And get rid of some of these other bigger, maybe this is just sort of the main hi-hat. We don't even need that. We'll just get rid of all of those. And that sounds kind of weird on its own, but if I take that, maybe we'll just do those. And, whoops, I do want some of these on this last one, probably. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And I want to create fades on all these, right? To get rid of some of those clicks. We don't want any clicks, so let's just create little fades everywhere. All right, this is looking pretty good. Because this is just a little perk accent layer, right? Let's, oop, it wasn't on. Let's go back, turn it on, take a listen. Sounds like it's kind of on and off a bit, but if I listen with the rest of the groove versus the before, which would have just been like this. Let's try and compare the before and after here. So before, these are tiny, 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 subtle, minuscule differences, but this second one is just feeling a little busier, a little harsh, a little more complex than this second one over here. And it's just because we're tidying things up. Let's do the same with this other top loop. So I don't think we need this hi-hat thing. We kind of just want the snare. So same deal. Don't even need that. It's just, yeah, let's just do the do, just the snares, pretty much. So and little fades everywhere, same deal, same concept, little fades. Little fade on there. Off. Tighter. All right, so let's see how this sounds kind of with everything. All right, where are we here? Duplicate that. Okay, so now take a listen. Now, this one is carrying a lot of reverb in with these snares. So if we're feeling like it's missing that in this section here, maybe we'll just go, and for our purposes here, let me just do this on another channel. And we can just add either some reverb here on ascend, and that'll put those in a little space there. And I think this here is feeling a little less busy, a little cleaner, a little tighter. Over here is feeling still pretty good. It's just feeling a little harsher, a little like busier. And when you start to add in a bunch of other elements, when you're adding in vocals and other perk elements and all this stuff, it's just going to start to feel busier and busier and busier and busier. So try to keep those drums clean, less harsh. Watch and pay attention to what you're layering, what you're stacking. Are a bunch of transient stacking, or is it just a couple? And if you're finding things are harsh, inspect some of that stuff first before you start going and adding a bunch of compressors and EQs and all that sort of stuff. I think this sort of stuff will like we got this sounding a lot cleaner, and we didn't really have to add any EQs or compressors or anything like that at all. So pay attention to the samples you're using, the transients you're stacking, the levels, and what's happening. That'll help you out tons. Hopefully you learned something. If you'd like to sign up for a one-on-one session with me, I'm offering them. You can sign up at vibrantlylabeled.com, and I'm doing them online, and we can link up and I can work on a tune of yours. We can get it all polished up and sounding great. If you haven't already, there's a bunch of sample packs up there. You can use the code DEMOBuddy to save $5 on any of the sample packs at vibrantlylabel.com. All right, that's all I got. Peace. Bye.